Smile, but don't start conversations tonight. The last thing I need is you embarrassing me in front of the board. My husband said it without looking at me. Graham was adjusting his cufflinks in the hotel mirror, while I stood behind him in a navy dress I had found on clearance for $68. He had rejected the first two dresses because one looked too ambitious and the other made me look like I was trying to be 25. The third was apparently acceptable because it made me easy to overlook. "Do you understand, Nora?" he asked. "Yes. And don't tell anyone you used to work at a diner. These people remember details." I looked at my reflection beside his. At 43, I had become very good at making myself small without changing the amount of space my body occupied. My shoulders curved inward. My hands stayed folded. My smile appeared before anyone could decide I was unhappy. 18 years of marriage had trained me well. Graham turned and inspected me. "Your hair is fine. Leave it alone." I lowered my hand. He kissed my forehead with the distracted affection someone might give a pet before leaving the house. "This anniversary gala matters," he said. "If Everett announces the regional vice president role tonight, I need everything to look right." Everything meant the tuxedo, the watch, the speech he had practiced for a week, and the wife who knew when not to speak. "I'll look right," I said. He smiled. "That's my girl." The Langford Meridian Group was celebrating its 25th anniversary in the ballroom of the Halston Grand. 300 guests filled the room beneath crystal chandeliers. Waiters moved between tables carrying champagne. A string quartet played near a wall covered with photographs from the company's history. Graham transformed the moment we entered. His posture widened, his voice deepened. He became warm, charming, attentive. He placed one hand at the small of my back as though he adored me. "Nora, you remember Martin Cole." "I do. It's nice to see you." Martin shook my hand, then immediately turned to Graham. "I heard the Richmond division broke another margin record." Graham gave a modest laugh. "We found a few efficiencies." I knew what he meant by we. 6 months earlier, a young analyst named Sofia Alvarez had developed a vendor consolidation plan that could save the division nearly $4 million a year. Graham had brought the report home and asked me to clean up the language. I spent 3 nights reorganizing it because he said the analyst was brilliant, but did not know how to speak to executives. When the initiative appeared in the company newsletter, Sophia's name was missing. Graham's photograph was not. I asked him about it. "She works for me," he said. "Her ideas belong to the division." I told myself that was how corporate life worked. I had become skilled at explaining away things that made me uncomfortable. During dinner, Graham answered questions about our family with the polished intimacy of an actor. "Yes, Nora has always been my greatest support. No, we never had children, but we've poured that love into our community. She keeps me grounded." Each sentence sounded almost true because I had once wanted it to be true. I had supported him. I left my evening degree program when his first promotion required a move. Later, I reduced my library hours for company events, then resigned when he said my job looked inconsistent with the life we were building. He called each sacrifice temporary. Eventually, temporary became my identity. After dinner, the ballroom lights dimmed. A video played across 3 enormous screens: factory openings, scholarship recipients, employees volunteering after hurricanes, Everett Langford shaking hands with presidents and nurses and construction workers. Everett had founded the company with a single medical supply warehouse. At 67, he remained chairman and majority owner. He was known for remembering employees' names and for appearing unexpectedly at regional offices. I had never met him. Graham had. He described Everett as a man who could recognize weakness before someone finished a sentence. "Stay near the table during the reception," Graham whispered. "I may need to move around." "Of course." He left before the applause ended. For 20 minutes, I stood beside white orchids while groups formed and dissolved around me. People glanced at my name tag and looked away. Invisibility felt safer when I could pretend it was voluntary. Then a waiter passed with coffee, and the smell carried me backward 20 years. Rain against metal. Burning rubber. A man screaming from a ditch beside Route 17. My fingers tightened around the table. I had not thought about that night in years. Not fully. Memory came in fragments when I allowed it. Headlights spinning across wet pavement, shattered glass, blood on my scarf. The sirens arriving after what felt like hours. A voice beside me said, "Excuse me." I turned. Everett Langford stood less than 6 feet away. He was taller than he appeared in photographs, silver-haired with a narrow scar near his left temple. 2 board members and a woman from communications stood behind him, his eyes fixed on my face. "Have we met?" he asked. "No, sir." He took 1 step closer. "What is your name?" "Nora Bennett." "Nora? What before Bennett?" The question startled me. "Hayes." His expression changed. The room seemed to move around us while he remained completely still. "Were you ever in a diner outside Millbrook?" he asked. My mouth went dry. "I worked nights at the Blue Lantern when I was 23. Everett stared at me. Then he whispered, "It was you." The woman from communications looked confused. "Mr. Langford." He did not answer her. He reached for my hand, then stopped before touching it. "Route 17, he said. November. Freezing rain. The ballroom disappeared. I saw the car again, nose down in a ravine, 1 rear tire still spinning. I saw a man trapped behind the steering wheel, blood running into his eyes. I heard myself shouting that help was coming, even though I did not know if anyone had called. "You were in the silver sedan," I said. Everett's breath broke. "I've been looking for you for 20 years. People nearby began turning toward us. "I didn't know your full name," he continued. The hospital had only Nora in the visitor log. The diner closed before my investigator arrived. "You hired an investigator." 3. I felt heat rise into my face. "It wasn't necessary. You climbed into a flooded ditch during an ice storm. You tore open the passenger door with a tire iron. You used your scarf to stop the bleeding from my leg. Anyone would have helped." "No," he said. "Several cars passed before you stopped." The small circle around us widened. Someone called Graham's name. He appeared through the crowd with a smile that vanished when he saw Everett holding my hand between both of his. "What's happening?" Graham asked. Everett turned toward him. "Your wife saved my life." Graham laughed. Not because it was funny, because he did not know what else to do. "I'm sorry. 20 years ago, my car went off Route 17. I was trapped in losing blood. Nora pulled me out." A hush spread faster than sound. Graham looked at me. "You never told me that." I did. His eyebrows drew together. "When, our 2nd year of marriage, we passed the old Blue Lantern exit, I told you about an accident. You said you helped someone." I did. "You didn't say it was Everett Langford." I didn't know his name. Everett watched us. Graham's face reddened. "You expect me to believe you never realized." I had never seen his photograph at the time. A camera flash burst. Then another. Everett turned toward the stage manager. "May I have the microphone?" Graham caught my arm. "Tell him no." I looked down at his hand. He released me. Everett walked onto the stage before I could respond. The orchestra fell silent. "Ladies and gentlemen," he said. I was not planning to make another speech tonight. People laughed politely. But 20 years ago, before this company became what it is now, I nearly died on a rural highway outside Charlotte. The room stilled. A young woman working the night shift at a diner saw my car in a ravine. She climbed down through freezing rain, forced open the door, stopped my bleeding, and stayed with me until paramedics arrived. He looked directly at me. She left the hospital before I could thank her. For 2 decades, I have tried to find her. My chest felt too tight to breathe. Tonight, Everett said I found her standing quietly beside a table while the rest of us celebrated ourselves. He held out his hand. "Nora Hayes Bennett, please come here." Every face turned toward me. My first instinct was to look at Graham for permission. He was staring at me with fury, hidden beneath a corporate smile. I walked anyway. The walk to the stage felt like crossing 18 years. Everett embraced me in front of 300 people. The applause rose. I stood beneath the lights in my clearance dress and remembered the woman I had been at 23. She had not waited for permission. She had not wondered whether her voice was too loud. She had seen someone in danger and moved. I had forgotten her. The crowd had not finished applauding when Graham came onto the stage. He placed an arm around me. "That's my Nora," he said into the microphone. His grip tightened at my waist. Everett's expression became unreadable. Graham smiled toward the cameras. "She's always been extraordinary." I almost turned to look at him. Always. That morning, he had asked me not to embarrass him. Now I was extraordinary because someone powerful had said so. After the ceremony, people surrounded me. Executives asked questions. Employees wanted photographs. A nurse from one of the company clinics hugged me and cried. Graham stayed beside me, answering whenever he could. "Yes, Nora has always been private. No, she never wanted recognition. We believe kindness should be quiet." He turned my silence into another achievement that belonged to him. Everett asked if we could speak privately the following week. Before I answered, Graham said absolutely, we'd be honored. Everett looked at me. I asked Mrs. Bennett. The smile on Graham's face cracked. "Yes," I said. "I would be glad to." On the drive home, Graham did not speak for 11 minutes. Then he turned off the radio. "You made me look like an idiot." I stared through the windshield. The sentence was so predictable that it almost felt scripted. How? My own wife saved the chairman's life, and I had no idea. "I told you. You told me some vague story about helping at an accident. That was the story. You should have understood what it could mean." To whom? To us. There it was. Not what it meant that I had saved a life. What it could mean to his career. "I didn't know who he was," I said. "You could have mentioned the scar. The company has published his history. I wasn't studying photographs of your chairman to identify a bleeding stranger from 20 years ago." His hands tightened on the wheel. "And that dress." I turned toward him. "What about it? Everyone will think I don't provide for you. You told me to wear it. I told you not to draw attention. There's a difference between modest and cheap." The hurt arrived with embarrassing familiarity. Even now, even after the stage, he still knew exactly where to cut. "I was good enough when I was invisible," I said. "What does that mean?" "It means you were comfortable with me until someone important noticed me." He laughed sharply. "Don't turn one dramatic evening into a feminist awakening." I looked back at the road. By the time we reached home, something inside me had gone quiet, not defeated. "Finished." Graham poured himself a drink and began pacing the kitchen. "We need to handle this carefully. Everett may offer you money. Do not accept anything without speaking to me." "I don't want his money." "Good. Gratitude can be leveraged more effectively than cash." I stared at him. He continued unaware. "The regional role is still undecided. If Everett feels personally connected to you, we can we." He stopped. "Yes, we are married. You spent the entire drive telling me I humiliated you. Because you did not prepare me. You mean I did not give you time to use it?" His face hardened. "Watch your tone." For years, those 3 words had worked. They transported me instantly into the role he preferred. Apologetic, reasonable, quiet. That night, they did not. I removed my wedding ring. Graham stared at my hand. "What are you doing?" I placed the ring on the kitchen island, remembering my tone. He scoffed. "Stop being theatrical. I am leaving. For the night. For the marriage." His face went blank. Then he smiled as though I were a child making a threat. "You have nowhere to go. I'll find somewhere. You have no income. I'll find that too. You haven't worked in years. I worked for 18 years. You simply called it supporting you." He moved between me and the doorway. "Do not walk out because some old man praised you at a gala. I'm not leaving because Everett praised me." "Then why?" "Because the first thing you felt when you learned I saved a man's life was embarrassment." "That is not fair." "No, it is accurate." His voice rose. "I gave you everything." I looked around the kitchen he chose, and the photographs where I always stood half a step behind him. "You gave me a life in which everything belonged to you, including the version of me allowed to exist." He stared. I picked up my purse. "You did not make me invisible, Graham. You only taught me to cooperate." He stepped aside. I drove to a 24-hour motel and cried until morning. Leaving did not feel brave. It felt like falling through the floor of my life. I had one suitcase, $240, and a credit card Graham could freeze. At 4 in the morning, I almost called him. I imagined returning, apologizing for overreacting, letting him tell me the gala had overwhelmed us both. Then I remembered his hand tightening around my waist on stage while he said, "That's my Nora." Possession disguised as pride. I turned off my phone. The next afternoon, Everett's assistant reached me by email. The message contained no offer of money, only a request. "Mr. Langford would like to meet you at any location that feels comfortable. He also asked me to say that you owe him nothing." We met at a quiet cafe near the river. Everett arrived alone. The first thing he did was place my old scarf on the table. It had once been red. Age and dried blood had darkened it to brown. "I kept it," he said. I touched the frayed edge. "I thought the paramedics threw it away. They sealed it with my belongings." He looked at me carefully. "May I ask why you disappeared from the hospital?" "I had a shift starting at 6. He blinked. "You went to work." "I needed the money." "With blood on your clothes." "I changed in the diner bathroom." His eyes filled. "You saved my life and went back to serving breakfast." "I didn't think there was another option." Everett sat in silence. Then he said, "My company's Second Chance Scholarship program exists because of that night." I frowned. "What do you mean?" "I built it after I recovered. I kept thinking about the young woman who risked herself for a stranger and then vanished because she could not afford to miss work." He described tuition assistance, emergency grants, and training programs for employees returning to school. Thousands of people had used them. The knowledge overwhelmed me. I didn't do any of that. "You started the question that led to it." I looked down at the scarf. For a long time, I thought the best thing a person could do was help and disappear. "Sometimes disappearing protects humility," Everett said. "Sometimes it protects people who benefit from your silence." The words landed too close to the truth. He did not ask about Graham. I told him anyway. Not everything. Just enough. "I left my husband last night." Everett's expression tightened. "Because of what happened. Because of what it revealed." He nodded slowly. "I understand. I don't want a reward." "I know. I don't want a job because you feel indebted." "I know that too." "Then why did you want to meet?" "To thank you. And to ask what you wanted before other people began deciding for you." No one had asked me that in years. I could not answer. Everett did not fill the silence. Finally, I said I wanted to finish school. "What did you study?" "Social work." 2 years. Then Graham was transferred and we could not afford both the move and tuition. "Would you still want that?" "I'm 43. "That is not an answer." I looked at him. "Yes," I whispered. "I think I would." "Then perhaps start there." He gave me the contact information for the Langford Renewal Foundation, an independent nonprofit funded by the company. It offered grants to adults rebuilding after financial control, caregiving displacement, or abuse. He did not call anyone while I watched. He did not promise admission. He simply wrote a name on a napkin. "Ask for Dr. Camille Rowan. Tell her your circumstances. Do not tell her you saved me unless you want to." That distinction mattered. I wanted a door, not someone carrying me through it. 2 days later, I rented a studio apartment above a bakery. The carpet was old. The bathroom faucet leaked. The only table wobbled. I loved it. The first night, I sat on the floor eating soup from a paper cup because I had not bought dishes. I kept waiting for Graham to criticize the neighborhood, the noise, the cheap blinds, the way I held the spoon. Silence filled the room. For the first time, silence belonged to me. Graham called from 6 different numbers. His messages changed tone every few hours. "You're upset. Come home. We can use counseling." "Everett is manipulating you. Do not discuss our private life with anyone. You are making me look abusive. You will regret this when the attention disappears." The last message hurt most because part of me believed it. What if the applause faded and I was still the woman who had not held a job in 12 years? What if Everett's gratitude was only another temporary light? What if Graham was right and I had mistaken one evening for a new identity? Dr. Camille Rowan answered those questions differently. During our first meeting, she slid a blank sheet of paper toward me. "Write down every skill you used while married." "I don't have professional skills." "Write what you did." I began reluctantly, managed household finances, scheduled medical care for Graham's mother, edited presentations, researched vendor contracts, organized charity events, handled travel, resolved disputes with contractors, wrote speeches, prepared grant applications for Graham's community projects. Camille turned the page toward herself. This is operations, communications, budgeting, advocacy, research, and project management. It was just helping. Unpaid work is still work. The sentence made me cry, not dramatically, quietly with my face turned away because shame still lived in my body. The foundation approved a living stipend, counseling, and tuition support for me to complete my degree. I enrolled in 2 classes. On the first day, I sat among students half my age and nearly walked out. Then a young woman beside me smiled. Is this human behavior too? I hope so. I'm terrified. I laughed. So am I. We entered together. Meanwhile, Graham's career began changing. At first, I knew only what he told me. He accused Everett of targeting him because I had poisoned the chairman against him. Then Sophia Alvarez emailed me. I had met her once at a company picnic. Her message was short. Mrs. Bennett, I'm sorry to contact you. After the gala, Mr. Langford asked employees to report concerns directly to the ethics office. I submitted documentation showing that Graham claimed my vendor consolidation model as his own. I thought you should know because you edited the original report. I stared at the screen. Graham had brought that report home. I still had an early version on an old laptop because he asked me to rewrite the executive summary. Sophia's name appeared on every page. I replied with the file. That file became the beginning of a formal investigation. The ethics team discovered Graham had removed Sophia's authorship, altered document history, and used the project to support his promotion. Then they reviewed his expense reports. Luxury dinners marked as client meetings. Weekend hotel stays in cities where no clients were scheduled. A designer briefcase claimed as field equipment. There were also fabricated stories in the internal magazine. One article described Graham and me spending Sundays mentoring at-risk teenagers. I had never seen it. The photograph beside it came from a charity luncheon we attended for 40 minutes. He had built his professional image the same way he built our marriage. Take something real, crop away the inconvenient parts, add a caption that made him look generous. Graham came to my apartment 3 weeks after I left. I heard him knocking while I stood frozen beside the kitchen sink. Nora, I know you're in there. I did not answer. I need to talk to you. The knocking became harder. The ethics office says you gave them files. I stepped closer to the door but kept the chain locked. They asked for evidence. You had no right. The report belonged to Sophia. It belonged to my division. It had her name on it. You do not understand how leadership works. I understand how theft works. Silence. Then his voice softened. This is not you. I almost opened the door. Not because I wanted him back. Because that sentence touched the oldest wound. For years, he had defined me so completely that disagreeing with him felt like impersonating someone else. I pressed my palm against the door. You're right, I said. This is the part of me you trained me to forget. His breathing changed. You think Everett will protect you forever? I'm not asking him to. You think finishing some degree makes you important? No, I think I was important before I finished it. He struck the door once with his fist. I flinched. Then he walked away. I called building security. The old Nora would have hidden the visit so Graham would not face consequences. The new Nora wrote down the time. The investigation concluded 6 weeks later. Graham was removed from management. The regional vice president position went to someone else. He lost his office direct reports and bonus eligibility. The company required repayment of unsupported expenses. He was not immediately fired, which surprised people. Everett explained the decision to the board. Consequences should match proven misconduct, not satisfy gossip. That mattered to me. I did not want Graham destroyed because he had hurt me. I wanted the truth to stop protecting him. 2 months later, he resigned rather than work under a manager who had once reported to him. He told mutual friends that I had ruined his career. For a while, some believed him. Then Sophia was publicly credited with the cost-saving plan and promoted. The document trail spoke more clearly than either of us. Our divorce mediation began that summer. Graham wore the same navy suit he had worn to the gala. He looked thinner, angrier. His attorney asked whether I had developed a personal relationship with Everett Langford. Number. Has he provided financial assistance? The Independent Foundation awarded me a rebuilding grant under its published criteria because you saved his life. My application was reviewed without that information. Graham laughed under his breath. The mediator looked at him. Mr. Bennett is something amusing. He stopped. During a break, he cornered me near the water fountain. You enjoy this? What? Watching people treat you like a hero while I lose everything. I did not take your work. I did not submit your expenses. I did not write false articles. You handed them the knife. No, I said. I stopped standing between you and the consequences. His face twisted. You were nobody before me. The words should have crushed me. Once they would have. Instead, I remembered Route 17. I remembered being 23, kneeling in icy mud, pressing a scarf against a stranger's leg while gasoline spread across the road. I remembered that Graham had not created that woman. He had simply convinced her to lower her voice. I was somebody before you, I said. That is why you worked so hard to make me forget. I walked away. The divorce was finalized 4 months later. I kept my retirement share, a modest settlement, and the car. Graham kept the house because I no longer wanted any room where I had practiced disappearing. On the morning I signed the final papers, I bought a second-hand dining table for my apartment. One leg was shorter than the others. I fixed it myself with a small wooden shim. The table stood level. I cried over that ridiculous table because no one had corrected me, supervised me, or told me I was doing it wrong. I had solved a problem in my own home. My life became larger in ordinary ways. I spoke in class without rehearsing sentences in my head. I wore red lipstick to the grocery store. I invited classmates for coffee even when the apartment was messy. I learned that freedom was not always a dramatic door closing. Sometimes it was leaving a mug in the sink and realizing no one would use it as evidence of your character. Camille later asked me to volunteer with a support group for women rebuilding after controlling marriages. At the first meeting, I planned to sit in the back. A woman named Denise spoke about her husband checking every receipt and mocking her voice until she stopped speaking around friends. My hands began to shake. When Camille asked whether anyone related, I raised mine. I used to think silence made me strong, I said. Really, it made my husband comfortable. The room went still. I continued. I confused keeping the peace with having peace. They are not the same. Afterward, 3 women asked if I would return. I did. Volunteering became facilitating. Facilitating became speaking at foundation workshops. At first, introductions focused on the accident. This is Nora Bennett, who saved Everett Langford's life. I ask them to change it. Tell them I'm finishing a social work degree and working with women rebuilding financial independence. Camille smiled. That is who you are now. That is who I'm choosing to become. Everett and I became friends slowly. He invited me to lunch sometimes. We discussed the foundation books and the strange burden of being publicly defined by one event. He never treated gratitude as ownership. When he offered advice, he asked first. When I said no, he accepted it. That was so unfamiliar that respect initially felt like distance. One afternoon, he asked whether I regretted being recognized at the gala. I thought about it. I regret that it took a powerful man remembering me before I remembered myself. Everett nodded. But I don't regret remembering. He looked toward the river. For what it's worth, I did not make you brave that night. I know. You were already brave. I know that now, too. 2 years after the gala, I completed my degree. At graduation, I searched the audience. Camille was there. Sophia was there. 3 women from the support group were there. Everett sat near the back with no photographers and no announcement. Graham was not there. For a moment, grief touched me. Not because I wanted him beside me. Because the girl I had been once believed he would celebrate every version of my future. Then my name was called. I walked across the stage without lowering my eyes. The foundation offered me a position coordinating its New Start initiative. I accepted after negotiating the salary. Negotiating terrified me more than public speaking. Camille waited while I named the number. Then she said, "That is reasonable." I laughed from relief. My first year, we helped 47 women obtain training, housing assistance, and legal referrals. I learned that compassion without structure can become another temporary rescue. So we built systems, emergency grants, childcare support, career coaching, financial education, not charity that demanded gratitude, tools that returned choice. The annual Langford Meridian Gala came again. This time I attended as a foundation program director. I wore a deep red dress I chose without asking anyone whether it looked too ambitious. The ballroom was the same. The orchids were different. Near the entrance hung a display about the company's second chance programs. One panel included a photograph of Everett's wrecked car and a short description of the unknown diner worker who inspired the first scholarship fund. The final line read, "She later asked to be known not for one night of courage, but for the lives she helped rebuild afterward." I stood before it for a long time. Sophia joined me. "Is that okay?" she asked. "Yes." "You sure?" "Yes, because this time I approve the wording." We laughed. During dinner, Everett announced the expansion of the New Start initiative. Then he invited me to speak. I walked to the stage. 2 years earlier, I had crossed the same floor waiting for Graham's permission. Now I carried my own notes. I looked across the room. Many people know the story of the night I stopped beside a wrecked car I began. For a long time, I believed that was the bravest thing I had ever done. The room quieted. It was not. I took a breath. The bravest thing I did was admit that the life I had spent 18 years protecting was hurting me. The bravest thing was starting over when I had no salary, no recent resume, and no confidence in my own voice. I saw women in the audience lean forward. People often praise quiet strength, but quiet is not always strength. Sometimes quiet is what we become when speaking has been punished too many times. My voice trembled. I let it. Starting again at 43 was not evidence that my life had failed. It was evidence that my life was still mine. The applause rose slowly, then filled the room. I did not look for Graham. I did not need to know whether he had heard about the speech. My life was no longer a message addressed to him. Afterward, a young catering worker approached me near the kitchen doors. "I'm sorry," she said. "I know you're busy." "I'm not. My boyfriend says I'm too sensitive whenever I tell him something hurts." I recognized the uncertainty in her eyes, the fear that naming pain made her unreasonable. I gave her the foundation's card. "You do not have to prove that something is unbearable before you are allowed to leave it." She held the card carefully. "Thank you." As she walked away, I remembered the Blue Lantern Diner, the smell of coffee, the rain, the 23-year-old woman who stopped because a stranger needed help. For years, I thought that woman had disappeared. She had not. She had been waiting beneath every apology, every lowered gaze, every sentence swallowed to preserve someone else's comfort. Graham did not erase her. He only benefited from my belief that he had you. I still have the old scarf. Everett returned it to me in a glass frame, but I removed it. It did not belong behind glass. I keep it folded in a drawer beside my graduation photograph. The fabric is stained and damaged. It reminds me that courage is rarely clean. It can look like crawling through mud. It can look like sleeping in a cheap motel with no plan. It can look like raising your hand in a classroom at 43. It can look like saying, "That was my work." It can look like placing a wedding ring on a kitchen counter and walking away from a life everyone else thinks you should be grateful to have. People sometimes ask whether saving Everett changed my life. The honest answer is no. Saving him changed his. Being found 20 years later created an opening. But I changed my life when I finally stepped through it under my own power. I am not the woman who saved a billionaire. I am not Graham Bennett's former wife. I am not the invisible woman beside the orchids. My name is Nora Hayes. I built second chances. And this time, I did not disappear after saving a life. I stayed long enough to save my own.